When I left the church, I told God that if that was the type of God He was, I didn't want anything to do with Him. I could not stop what I was doing. My family could not stop me from what I was doing. It was like there was a wake of destruction in my path, and everybody behind me was being led to hell. My name is David, and this is my testimony. As a child, I can remember growing up, and there's been a lot of times where I was running away from the cross, and there was times that I was running to the cross. The time I was 14 or 15 years old, I was going to church 4 to 5 nights a week. The time I was 16 years old, my sports career ended on a back surgery. Church began to change. I took my eyes off of what God had called me to be, and I began to put them on man. And when the men in the church began to fail me, everything went to hell. I began to run the streets. I began to be addicted to drugs and alcohol. Shortly after that, I began to gangbang. When I left the church, I told God that if that was the type of God He was, I didn't want anything to do with Him. For the next 5 years, my life was spiraling out of control. The time I was 23, had 2 kids and a divorce. I could not stop what I was doing. My family could not stop me from what I was doing. It was like there was a wake of destruction in my path, and everybody behind me was being led to hell. I was in the streets. I was doing everything I could just to run as far away from God as I could. I can remember one time where I was locked up, and my son looked at the glass after our meeting there, and he said, "Daddy, I want to stay with you." And it was that time when I found out the things that I was doing wasn't just hurting me, it was hurting my family too. And I get back to the cell that day, and I cried out to God. I said, "God, where are you?" And it was like He tapped me on the shoulder. It was more real at that moment than any other time in my life. And I heard this voice saying, "I've been here the whole time. You're the one that turned your back on me." At that moment, my situation didn't change. I was still behind bars, but I knew that I was a redeemed man. At that time, I spent my birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's behind bars. And when I got out, I turned everything I had over to Christ. I can tell you that God began to change me from the inside. It was like the potter was molding the clay. In that instant, I had a Job moment. The Lord began to give me everything back that the enemy had taken away. He gave me a new wife that stood by my side through everything. He gave me a new son. He gave everything back to me plus what I had before. It was like that I had a new lease on life. I found out that God's strength was perfect in my weakness. The next 15 years I spent on a road to recovery, a road of redemption. When I found out what the true meaning of redemption was, I knew that God had given me a second chance. I stand before you today, a man that has been redeemed, a man that has the blood of a king running through his veins. I am the man that God has called me to be, and I continue on this road of righteousness. My name is David, and this is my testimony.